I want to continue our theme of transitions. Now, the EU referendum is likely to result in the ultimate transition, taking many years to complete and resulting in potentially substantial changes to the tax and other laws in the United Kingdom. And these changes are going to have a significant impact on everybody. Brexit will undoubtedly affect how people and businesses are taxed in the future, and the uncertainty on future tax rules will create challenges for businesses as they plan their future and make investment decisions. The other issue is whether government actually has the resources. One area where we will see a negative impact is on imports and exports. The movement of goods between EU member states at the present time is relatively straightforward, but we will return to the days where import VAT had to be paid at the point of entry of goods into the UK. At the present time, goods can be imported, sold, and the VAT only accounted for from the sale proceeds. This is a finance issue. Harmonising procedures within the EU is a considerable benefit to us at the present time, and what we will find is that as we move out, that you could potentially have different short-term trading agreements with all 27 different member states. When it comes to employment law, it's highly unlikely that any UK government would seek to fully repeal or even substantially repeal any existing employment laws. Much of the employment protection which flows from Europe reflects accepted standards of good employee relations practices. The UK's insolvency regime is entwined with the rules of employment, tax, property, etc., and all these are likewise linked with European rules. This is going to be a difficult area to resolve. We may also find that UK insolvency practitioners' powers may no longer be automatically recognised elsewhere in the EU. One area that has not received much attention is the question of data protection. And if we want to have access to the single market, we may have to prove adequacy and show that the UK's protection standards are as good as those in the EU. There are likely to be some significant short-term tax effects. Some projects, like making tax digital, may well get shelved because of a lack of resources within government departments, including HMRC. There's likely to be an emergency budget, probably in October, and it's been mooted that there could be a 2p rise in the basic rate of income tax, a 3p rise in the higher rate, and a 5% inheritance tax increase. In addition, when Cameron goes, it's likely that Osborne is likely to go as well. In the longer term, there will be no need for referrals to the European Court on VAT matters. The government will have freedom to extend the scope of zero rating and exemptions from VAT, and Intrastat returns will cease to apply. Exports and imports will no longer be intra-EU movements, and so they'll be subject to a different VAT regime. However, if you incur expenses in other EU countries, it's going to prove more difficult to recover that VAT. The Tour Operators Margin Scheme, TOMS, will not be easy for UK businesses to operate in the future. And overall, VAT is likely to become a more political tax, with changes introduced in response to changing political pressures, and inevitably it's going to become more complex. In future, there will no longer be a need to seek European approval in respect of state aid on tax incentives for things like research and development or EIS. It will also be easier for government to introduce other incentives to fulfil its objectives. Government resources to fulfil the objectives of Brexit are going to be a major concern. According to the Treasury's annual report, the vote to leave the EU will present the Treasury with new challenges and will hamper its resources and expertise. The strain on the departments will increase when the EU exit negotiations get underway. Melanie Dawes, the Permanent Secretary for the Department of Communities and Local Government, has admitted the same. This is going to result in a major cost as new staff are taken on to fulfil the requirements of the Brexit negotiations. It seems likely that a large body of people will be required. It's difficult to envisage how this can all be achieved within 2 years, and some of the earlier estimates of 10 years do seem more probable. We can therefore see that the lack of resources increases the level of uncertainty, which means there's going to be a longer period of transition for small businesses to weather. I'm Alan Long from the Long Partnership, making life less taxing.